Building it brick by brick.
And I want to talk about, in the framework of neoliberalism, this, to echo the words of Margaret Thatcher, is what we believe. The more I learn about neoliberalism, the more I realize that all of it, almost everything we are fighting against in our current political climate, is a result, almost either directly or very closely but indirectly related to neoliberalism. And once you understand that, you will better understand what our real enemy is. And once you really understand our enemy, you will really be able to fight it. But what neoliberalism as an ideology fails to recognize is that the market is an unconscious, soulless entity that lacks morality. It's not that the market is amoral, it just doesn't have human morals. I'm not advocating like a Bolshevik revolution where we just take stuff from the rich, and I have no problem with people and companies making a profit. I actually don't. Those people aren't as concerned with healthy profit as they are with growth at any cost. And this is where things go bad. Revenue's basically been maxed out for that company. And once revenue's been maximized, the only place to turn to produce growth is in the reduction of expenses. Now it's not uncommon for institutional investors to demand that CEOs move production facilities overseas.
Relocating our operations to Monterey will allow us to maintain high levels of product quality at competitive prices and continue to serve the extremely price-sensitive marketplace. I want to be clear, this is strictly a business decision.
It removes any social responsibility for the sake of profit, and more importantly, for the sake of growth. Does that sound familiar? Doesn't that sound like the despair that's fueling the exploding heroin crisis in America right now? Neoliberalism is literally killing us. This was the case in Chile and the rest of the Southern Cone countries in the 70s. However, their version of success didn't mean growth in economic prosperity for all, but growth in the economic prosperity only for the very few, namely the 1%. The shareholders.
That's why I can say with confidence that rich people don't create jobs, nor do businesses large or small. Jobs are a consequence of a circle of life-like feedback loop between customers and businesses. And only consumers can set in motion this virtuous cycle of increasing demand and hiring. In this sense, an ordinary consumer is more of a job creator than a capitalist like me.
But Rahm Emanuel, as mayor of Chicago, former chief of staff of President Obama, closed over 100 public schools in Chicago as mayor. We have record levels of childhood poverty in the industrialized world. Brought about by who? A Republican's welfare reform bill? No. President Bill Clinton's welfare reform bill. We have a Democratic president to thank for that. Bill Clinton, under the crime bill that ramped up the privatization of public assets, putting profit incentives in place of justice. Filling prisons with bodies became a profit-driven venture. Trump's entire budget proposal actually is one enormous axe that he's planning on taking, that he's proposing on taking to existing government regulations. It's deregulation on steroids in one fell swoop by taking out the money to implement the regulations. It has yet to pass, but rest assured that is the intent. rising unemployment, underemployment, along with job insecurity. This is what deregulation leads to. Trade deals implemented by both political parties, but most notably by the Clinton administration. Cuts to public services. What's the first thing that comes to mind? Flint, of course. Again, these are neoliberals we're talking about. There's no longer any pretense as to whether they care about what happens to you and me. They don't. There's no coincidence that these people prefer a dictatorship, and the fact that there are now 17 states that have or are in the process of introducing legislation to criminalize peaceful protests today in America. What was done in Chile happened in days. What's being done here has taken years, decades even, but it is the same playbook all the same. Make no mistake. So what if it were about a bigger prize? Regime change has been a part of the neoliberal toolkit since 1973. Donald Rumsfeld, was an acolyte of Friedman and the architect of shock and awe in Iraq. The favored method of Friedman, shocking a society and its people, distracting them with this shocking fabricated action over here so that you don't notice what I'm doing to your economy over there. Neoliberalism is not based on or concerned with morals. This is why understanding neoliberalism is important in America and in the UK and in the rest of the world. But for us, we're being colonized by corporations in our own country. And after we've ravaged so many countries with this neoliberal nightmare, there is no one left to save us but us. To quote Margaret Thatcher, this is what we believe about neoliberalism. It is counterproductive because it undermines the consumer base, and ultimately it undermines a consumer-based economy. It is economic sadism. It penalizes the poorest for the benefits of the richest. It's reverse Robin Hood. Redistribution of wealth in the reverse. It is parasitical and it is sociopathic. I cannot use words that are strong enough to describe how neoliberalism enables corporate interests to exploit the general population in multiple ways with no regard for the damage inflicted. It deliberately lacks any social responsibility. Neoliberalism is public theft because it uses tax dollars to subsidize corporate profits directly and indirectly. Charter schools, prisons for profit, things like that. Neoliberalism is corporate feudalism. It undermines workers' rights and promotes a low-wage economy, promoting unemployment and security, and they wrap it up in right-to-work legislation. It is anti-American and undemocratic because it promotes government as a servant of corporate interests above government as a servant of the people, by the people, for the people. In his book, People of the Lie, Scott Peck identifies narcissism as the cause of evil in the world. Specifically, he identifies narcissistic personality disorder and sociopathic behavior. Neoliberalism is essentially institutionalized and legislated narcissism, and the resulting evil is self-evident, isn't it?
Building a brick by brick.